Deep in the black between stars, the Vexari Dominion ruled without question. For hundreds of years, their hunters had been the strongest in the galaxy. No one could match them in the great apex trials where the deadliest beings fought to prove who sat at the top. The Shadowclaws were their best guild. 23 champions came from many fierce species. There were tall reptilians who could bend light to vanish from sight, insect-like creatures that spat burning acid strong enough to melt steel, cat-like beings who twisted gravity to leap impossible distances, and others even more strange and deadly. Each hunter carried a special weapon made from the bones or teeth of creatures and worlds they had already conquered. These weapons were not just tools, they were trophies that screamed power. When the Shadowclaws moved as a group, even the oldest and wisest species in the galaxy lowered their eyes and stayed quiet. One day their scouts picked up strange signals coming from a small, forgotten planet called Earth. The planet sat far from the main trade lanes in a quiet corner of space. Everyone thought Earth was still primitive, barely able to leave its own atmosphere, not even worth a visit yet. The signals, though, showed bursts of clean energy that should not exist on such a young world. The Dominion leaders felt curious and annoyed at the same time. Something unknown was happening there, and unknown things could become threats. They decided to send 8 of their finest hunters to investigate. The mission was simple. Land quietly, find whatever caused the signals, collect a few live specimens if possible, kill anything that resisted, and leave a clear message that Earth now belonged under Dominion watch. The 8 hunters dropped from orbit in stealth pods that made no sound and left no heat trail. They chose a thick forest on a large continent as their landing zone. Tall trees blocked the sky, rivers cut through the ground, and animals moved in every direction. To them, it looked like easy ground. They expected spears, arrows, maybe some loud primitive guns at worst. Nothing that could challenge even one of them, let alone 8 working together. They spread out in a wide circle, senses sharp, weapons ready, confidence high. Their leader, a massive reptilian named Kresk, with scales black as deep space, gave the silent signal to begin the sweep. They moved like shadows among shadows. Days passed, then weeks. The hunters did not report back. First one stopped answering calls, then another, then the rest. No screams came over the comms, no alerts of battle, no blood markers or locator pings. Just silence that grew heavier each hour. Sometimes, very faintly, the comms picked up something strange, a low, soft sound like human laughter, calm, almost amused, before the channel went dead again. The Dominion Council listened to those short clips over and over. The laughter did not sound afraid. It sounded patient. It sounded like someone who knew exactly what was happening and found it mildly funny. Anger spread through the Dominion like fire through dry grass. 8 elite Shadowclaws gone without a fight? Impossible. Humiliating. The leaders called back the entire guild. All 20 remaining champions would go this time. No more scouting. No more gentle collection. They would arrive in force, burn whatever resisted, take every living thing worth keeping as trophies, and turn the whole planet into a private hunting preserve for Dominion nobles. To make sure no one missed the lesson, they sent the announcement across every open channel in known space. Huge hologram projections appeared above major worlds. The message was clear and cold. Earth had insulted the apex predators, and now the apex predators were coming to collect the debt. Species across the galaxy watched the broadcast in silence. Many felt pity for the small blue planet. A few felt curiosity. Almost none believed Earth could survive. The 20 hunters gathered on the flagship. They sharpened blades that sang when moved through air. They checked cloaking fields that turned them nearly invisible. They loaded venom darts, plasma spears, graviton crushers, and neural whips. Kresk stood at the front, his black scales polished until they reflected starlight. Beside him stood Vorak, the tallest of the felinoid gravity shifters, whose paws could crush stone. Behind them waited the others, acid spitters, bone breakers, silent stalkers, each one a nightmare made flesh. They laughed among themselves as the ship jumped toward Earth space. This time there would be no tricks, no vanishing. This time the planet would learn fear. Far below on Earth, in a quiet room lit only by screens, a woman named Mara Voss watched the same Dominion broadcast. She sat still, arms crossed, face calm. The images of the 20 hunters flashed across her display. She studied their shapes, their weapons, the way they moved. No fear showed in her eyes. No anger either. Just quiet focus. The same focus she used when lining up a long shot through wind and rain. When the broadcast ended, she stood, walked to a locked cabinet, and took out one simple rifle, the same one she had carried through deserts, jungles, and mountains for many years. She checked the bore, ran a cloth along the barrel, then slung it over her shoulder. Outside, a small transport waited. No flags, no escort, just a plain ship with enough fuel to reach orbit. Mara stepped aboard without looking back. The pilot, a young man who knew better than to ask questions, gave her a quick nod. Engines hummed. The ship lifted smoothly into the night sky. Above, the Dominion Armada arrived. 20 elite hunters prepared to drop. They expected screams, panic, easy kills. They had no idea the hunt had already started, and that this time, they were the ones being tracked. The Galactic Concord, a loose council of old species that tried to keep peace between the stars, received the Dominion's bold announcement with deep worry. They had seen many worlds fall under the Shadow Claws before, but never one that simply made 8 elite hunters disappear without any sign of a fight. The Concord could not ignore the broadcast that now played on every major world screen, showing the 20 champions ready to descend on Earth. To stop open war, the Concord sent a formal message to both sides. They offered a single chance for fairness, a neutral proving ground, an empty moon called Karos 9 that had been turned into a deadly arena long ago for exactly these kinds of disputes. The rules were harsh and clear. Earth would send one single representative to face all 20 Shadow Claws at the same time. If the human won and survived until the end, Earth stayed free and untouched forever. If the Claws won, Earth became Dominion land, open for any hunt they wanted. No fleets, no armies, no outside help allowed on either side. The moon had thick jungles, poison fog that burned lungs, ground that shifted and cracked without warning, giant beasts bred to attack anything that moved, and hidden traps left from old wars. It was a place made for killing, and the Concord would watch every moment through floating cameras so the whole galaxy could see the result. Earth's leaders did not argue or beg. They answered in less than one day. No big speech came, no show of force, just a short message that said one person would come, and that was all. Across the galaxy, people laughed at first, thinking it was a joke or a mistake. Then the small transport ship appeared at the edge of the system. It was plain gray, no weapons showing, no fancy shields, nothing to make it look strong. It landed quietly on the observation platform, floating high above Karos 9. The platform held seats for diplomats, nobles, and reporters from many worlds. They all leaned forward when the hatch opened. A single figure stepped out. She was not tall. She wore simple dark green fatigues that looked worn from long use, boots covered in old mud, and a heavy backpack that seemed light on her shoulders. A long rifle hung across her back, the kind made for shooting very far, with a plain scope and no bright decorations. Her hair was tied back tight, face calm, eyes steady. She looked about 35 years old, fit but not huge with muscle. No glowing implants, no robotic arms, no visible armor plates. Just a human woman carrying basic gear. Her name was Lieutenant Mara Voss. She had spent years in special forces, then taught survival in the hardest places on Earth. She knew cold mountains, hot deserts, wet jungles, and empty oceans. She had tracked people for days without sleep, lived on almost nothing, and made weapons from sticks and rocks when needed. But no one in the galaxy knew her name yet. The 20 Shadow Claws stood in a line on the other side of the platform. They towered over her. Kresk, the black-scaled leader from the first group, had come back with scars that still looked fresh. Vorak, the huge felinoid with paws like hammers, flexed his claws and made gravity bend around him, so dust floated up. The insectoids clicked their mandibles and dripped acid that hissed on the metal floor. All of them wore their best gear, cloaks that bent light, helmets that hid heat, belts full of poison darts and energy blades. They looked like death walking. When Mara stepped forward, they stared down at her small shape. Then the laughter started. It rolled through them like thunder, deep growls, sharp hisses, chittering that hurt the ears. Vorak stepped out first. His voice came through the translator, low and mocking. "This is Earth's answer? One soft-skinned female with a toy gun? We will finish this hunt before the first moonrise." The others joined in, slapping weapons together, making bets on who would take the first trophy, her head, her rifle, or just her ears as proof. Mara did not move. She met their eyes one by one, not blinking. When the laughter slowed, she spoke. Her voice was quiet but clear, carried by the open air, so every camera and every listener heard it. "You came to my home uninvited. You took nothing. You lost 8. Now you bring 20. Fine. Let's see if numbers make you brave." She smiled then, not big, not angry, just a small, calm curve of the lips. It was the smile of someone who had already decided how the day would end. The claws laughed louder. Kresk raised one clawed hand. "The hunt begins at dusk. She will run. We will chase. By morning her skin will decorate my belt." They turned and jumped down to the drop pods that would take them to the surface. Their armor gleamed under the lights. She adjusted the sling on her rifle, checked the knife at her hip, then looked up at the sky where the observation cameras floated. She gave one small nod, like saying hello to old friends, then walked to her own pod. Inside she sat alone. No co-pilot, no team, just her and the gear she trusted. The pods launched one after another. The claws dropped first, spreading out across the moon in their perfect formation. They activated every trick they had: cloaking fields, scent blockers, motion sensors that could hear a heartbeat from a kilometer away. They felt sure. This was their game, their rules, their prey. Mara's pod fell last. It landed soft, in thick trees far from the others. She stepped out, breathed the wet air, listened to the night sounds, howls, insect buzz, wind in leaves. She knelt, touched the ground, felt the soil. Then she stood again, rifle in hands, but not raised. She started walking, slow and steady, not hiding her steps. She broke a branch here, left a clear footprint there, even dropped an empty ration wrapper on purpose. Trails anyone could follow. High above, the watchers held their breath. The galaxy waited. Down below, Mara Voss moved deeper into the jungle. She did not run. She did not hide. She waited. Because the hunt had rules now, and they were hers. The arena moon Karos 9 came alive at dusk with a low, constant hum of danger. Thick purple fog rolled between giant black trees whose leaves dripped acid that burned skin on contact. The ground shifted in places, cracked open by old quakes, and hidden pits waited under thin moss. Giant six-legged beasts roamed, bred long ago to hunt anything warm-blooded, their roars shaking branches. The 20 shadow claws dropped from their pods in perfect silence, spreading out in a wide net formation. They activated every advantage they had. Cloaking fields bent light so they looked like moving shadows. Thermal dampeners hid their body heat. Scent blockers made them invisible to smell. Gravity shifters like Vorak floated just above the ground to leave no tracks. Insectoids extended feelers that picked up heartbeats from far away. Kresk, the black-scaled leader, gave the final signal with a low hiss over comms. They moved in, confident this small human could not hide long. Above them, floating cameras followed every step, sending live pictures to billions watching across the galaxy. Everyone expected a quick end, a chase, a scream, then trophies raised high. Mara Voss stepped out of her pod last. She carried only her rifle, a combat knife strapped to her thigh, a small backpack with water, food bars, and a fist-sized drone. No fancy tech, no glowing armor. She took one slow breath of the wet, bitter air, then started walking. She did not run or crouch. She moved straight and open, boots crunching leaves, breaking small branches on purpose. She left clear footprints in soft mud. She even pulled a shiny ration wrapper from her pocket and dropped it where light would catch it. Any hunter with eyes could follow that trail. The claws saw it right away. Their sensors lit up with her heat shape, her footsteps, her scent. 3 of them, the fastest stalkers, broke from the main group to close the trap early. They wanted first blood, first glory. They glided forward, under full cloak, blades ready, sure she would never see them coming. The first stalker, a thin reptilian with venom spines, reached the spot where her trail ended at a small clearing. He saw nothing but trees and fog. Then his foot pressed down on a patch of ground that looked normal. The cover gave way. He dropped into a deep hole Mara had dug in less than an hour, using only her knife and a flat rock. At the bottom waited sharp rebar spikes she had pulled from an old crashed survey probe half buried nearby. The spikes went through his armor like paper. He made one short gasp over comms, before silence. The other 2 stalkers froze, confused. They scanned for traps, but found none more. They moved faster now, angry. One chased what looked like her heat signature, running deeper into the jungle. He followed it through vines and over roots, until he reached a small pile of warm rocks, arranged in a circle, with her jacket draped over them. A tiny chemical pack inside the jacket glowed hot, fooling his sensors. As he leaned close to check, a single quiet shot came from 300 meters away. The bullet entered his eye slit and ended him clean. He fell without a sound. The 3rd stalker heard the shot, turned, and ran toward the sound. He never saw the deadfall Mara had set, a heavy log balanced on a thin branch trigger. When he brushed the trip vine, tons of wood crashed down, crushing his chest plate and ribs. 3 gone in under 2 hours. No fight, no chase, just clever traps and one perfect shot. The rest of the claws felt the change, their comms filled with sharp questions, then curses. They tightened the circle, pulled back from lone hunts. Kresk ordered full sensor sweeps and overlapping fields so no blind spots remained. They burned small patches of jungle with plasma to clear sightlines. Smoke rose thick and black. They thought fire would flush her out. She moved behind it, low and quiet now, circling wide. She watched them from ridges, noted how they grouped, how they checked weapons, how some started to glance over shoulders. She spoke once on open channel, voice calm and clear. You hunt in daylight like it's easy, but night changes things, and patience wins more than speed. The claws snarled back, promising pain. Vorak laughed loudest, said he would snap her spine himself. Mara did not answer again. She just kept moving. Night fell hard on Karos 9. The fog turned thicker, glowing faintly from bioluminescent plants. Beasts howled closer. The claws switched to night vision and motion trackers. They found more of her signs, another footprint, a snapped twig, even a small fire she left burning low with green wood to make thick smoke. They closed on it fast. 4 hunters reached the fire first. They saw only embers and a shape that looked like her sitting still. They charged. The shape was a bundle of branches wrapped in her spare shirt, warmed by hot stones from the fire. As they realized the trick, Mara fired from a different angle. 2 shots. 2 heads snapped back. The other 2 dove for cover, but hit wires she had strung between trees. Thin monofilament line, tied to small charges, scavenged from a broken drone wreck. Explosions ripped through them. 4 more gone. The watchers above gasped. The galaxy started to whisper. This was not a fight. This was something older, something patient and cold. Mara did not stop to celebrate. She ran now, but not in panic. She ran the way Earth predators run, steady, mile after mile, wearing down faster quarry. She drank from leaves that caught dew, ate a small bar, slept 10 minutes in a hollow log, while her drone hovered watch. The claws grew louder on comms, arguing, blaming each other. Kresk tried to keep order, but fear crept in. They had lost 7 already, and dawn was still hours away. They decided to burn bigger sections, force her into open ground. Flames roared up, lighting the jungle orange. Mara stayed ahead of the fire, using the heat and smoke as cover. She doubled back through already burned patches where ash hid her tracks. From a high branch, she watched them push forward, coughing in the smoke they made themselves. She lined up her rifle, breathed slow, and took another shot. A gravity shifter dropped, clutching his throat, where the bullet punched through weak armor joints. 8 down now. The hunt had started on their terms. Big numbers, big weapons, big confidence. But Mara played a different game. She did not try to match their strength. She made them chase ghosts, step on traps, doubt their eyes and tools. She turned their pride into weakness. Every death made the others slower, angrier, less careful. And Mara kept walking, kept watching, kept waiting for the moment they broke completely. The firelight danced on her calm face as she reloaded. She had no smile now, only focus. The galaxy watched, and for the first time, many began to understand why Earth sent only one. Because one was enough. The fires Mara had let the claws start now raged across wide sections of Karos 9, turning night into flickering orange day. Thick black smoke rolled low, hiding shapes and choking the air. The remaining 12 shadow claws pushed forward through the burn, coughing behind their filters, eyes wide under helmets. They had stopped laughing hours ago. Their perfect formation had shrunk into a tight knot. Weapons pointed every direction, voices sharp on comms with blame and fear. Kresk still led, but his black scales looked dull in the firelight, and his orders came shorter, angrier. Vorak stayed close to him, gravity field humming to lift fallen branches out of their path. The others, acid spitters, bone breakers, silent stalkers, kept glancing back at empty jungle, expecting her at any second. They had lost 8 already to traps, shots, and tricks. Now they burned the world to force her out. Mara used that against them. She stayed in the scorched zones, where ash covered footprints and heat confused sensors. She moved like smoke herself, low, quiet, patient. She ran when they burned, circled wide when they rested, always keeping distance, but never too far to watch. She did not fight like them. They wanted quick kills, loud clashes, trophies taken in glory. Mara hunted the way humans had hunted for thousands of years on Earth. by wearing prey down. She never stopped moving for long. She slept in 15-minute bursts, curled in hollows or up in branches, drone hovering to wake her if anything came close. She drank from water trapped in wide leaves, ate small bites of ration bar while walking. Her body hurt, muscles burned, lungs stung from smoke, but she pushed it aside like she had pushed pain many times before. The claws grew tired faster. Their heavy armor, fancy tech, and big weapons made them slow after hours of running and searching. They argued more on open channels. One insectoid hissed that this was no hunt, it was a curse. Another said the human was not alone, must have hidden allies. Kresk snapped them quiet, but doubt spread like the fire. Mara spoke again on open comms, voice steady and low. You are very good at being the top. Fast, strong, armed to the teeth. But you have never been the one running. Never been the one who has to keep going when everything hurts and hope is gone. Welcome to Earth Rules. The words hit them hard. Some snarled back insults. Others stayed silent. She did not wait for answers. She kept circling, picking weak points. One stalker strayed too far from the group, scanning a ridge alone. Mara waited in cover until he passed below her tree. She dropped a small stone to make noise on his left. When he turned that way, she fired once, clean through the neck joint, where armor met scales. He fell without a sound. 9 down. The group heard the body hit ground, rushed over, found only the corpse and her boot print fading in ash. They burned that whole ridge in rage. Mara was already gone, moving to the next spot. She used their own weapons against them next. A plasma grenade one claw carried too loose, got tied to a tripwire across a narrow path. When 3 pushed through at once, the blast caught them mid-step. Shrapnel and fire took 2. The third crawled away screaming until a follow-up shot ended it. 11 down. Vorak roared and charged forward alone, gravity twisting so he flew over burning logs. He wanted her head now, personal. Mara let him chase. She left false trails, more broken branches, a torn piece of cloth, even fake heat blooms from chemical packs tossed behind. Vorak followed them deep into a ravine, where fog hung thick and beasts growled close. He thought he had her cornered. Instead, he found an empty clearing with her drone hovering high, projecting a small hologram of her standing still. As he slashed at the image, Mara fired from the opposite ridge. 2 shots, one to shatter his grav belt, one to punch through his chest plate where the armor was thinnest from years of use. Vorak dropped like a stone, gasping. She walked down slow, looked at him once, then finished him with her knife, so it was quick. The big felinoid died, staring up at a sky he could no longer reach. The rest broke after that. 5 left. They stopped burning, stopped spreading out. They huddled in a burned clearing, backs together, weapons hot and ready. Kresk tried to rally them. She bleeds too. She tires. We wait for dawn, then we end this. But fear showed in their voices now. One acid spitter cracked first, ran off alone, saying he would find her and bring back proof. Mara waited until he was far enough, then lured a big 6-legged beast toward him with thrown stones and noise. The beast charged. The insectoid spat acid, burned part of it, but the claws ripped through him before he could reload. 12 down. The last 4 panicked. They fired wild into the dark, plasma bolts lighting trees, explosions shaking ground. Mara stayed low, used the chaos to close in. She shot one through the knee, so he fell screaming, then another in the back as he turned to help. 2 left, Kresk and a silent stalker who had stayed quiet the whole hunt. Dawn came slow, gray light cutting through smoke. Kresk and the stalker stood in the center of blackened earth, breathing hard. They saw her then, Mara walking out of the trees, rifle lowered, but ready, face calm, clothes torn and covered in ash, but step steady. Kresk raised his honor blades, voice rough. Face me, human. No tricks. 1 against 1. Mara stopped 30 meters away. She looked at him a long moment. Then she spoke soft. You came to my world. You lost your first 8. You brought 20 more. Now look around. Where are your brothers? Kresk charged anyway, blades singing through air. Mara sidestepped smooth, like she had practiced the move 1,000 times. She drove her combat knife into the nerve cluster under his arm, where she had studied the body of one dead reptilian earlier. He froze mid-swing. She twisted, pulled free, stepped back. Kresk dropped to his knees. The last stalker tried to run. Mara raised her rifle and shot once, clean through the spine. Silence fell. She stood there in the gray light, breathing even, looking at the last Dominion champion on his knees. Kresk stared up, eyes wide with something new, fear mixed with understanding. Mara did not smile. She just nodded once, small and final, then turned and walked away through the smoke toward the extraction point. Behind her, the fires still burned low. The floating cameras caught every second. The galaxy watched in stunned quiet. 19 elite hunters gone, 1 left alive, broken on the ground. And 1 small human woman, walking out alone. The hunt was over. She had turned their rules inside out. And Earth rules had won. The gray dawn light spread slow across the blackened face of Karos 9, turning smoke into thin silver mist that hung between dead trees. Mara Voss walked alone through the ash, boots leaving soft prints that the wind would soon erase. Her rifle hung easy on her back, barrel still warm from the last shot. Her fatigues were torn at the sleeves and knees, streaked with soot and dried blood that was not hers. Cuts marked her arms and one cheek from thorns and falling branches, but she moved straight and steady. No limp, no hurry. Behind her in the wide scorched clearing lay the last of the shadow claws. Kresk knelt on one knee, honor blades dropped in the dirt, black scales cracked and dull. His chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, eyes fixed on the small human woman who had broken his guild without raising her voice. The floating cameras circled high, catching every detail. The empty jungle, the cooling bodies scattered like forgotten toys. The silence where 20 elite hunters once roared with pride. The galaxy watched without blinking. Billions of eyes on screens across 1,000 worlds saw the same thing. 1 person against the best killers known to space, and the killers were gone. Mara stopped at the edge of the clearing. She looked back once at Kresk. He tried to speak, voice rough and broken through his translator. How does one like you do this? She answered quiet, words carried clear on the open channel, so every listener heard. We do not do it because we are stronger or faster. We do it because we never stop. On my world, the best hunters do not chase for sport. They chase because they must eat, because winter comes, because the herd runs far. They learn to follow when others quit. They learn to wait when others rush. They learn that fear is a tool, not a master. You came here thinking fear belonged to us. Now you feel it. That is enough. She turned away then. No more words needed. Kresk lowered his head. He did not rise. The cameras stayed on him a long moment before following her path. She reached the extraction point, a small flat rock circled by burned trees where her pod would land. She sat on the edge, pulled a water pouch from her pack, drank slow. Her small drone returned, hovered near her shoulder like a tired bird, then powered down. She checked her rifle one last time, magazine half full, barrel clean, then set it beside her. No rush. The hunt was finished. High above on the observation platform, the diplomats, nobles, and reporters stood frozen. The Concord overseers whispered urgent messages. Dominion delegates stared at blank screens where their champions' vitals had flatlined, one by one. No one cheered, no one laughed. The silence felt heavier than any explosion. 17 hours and 43 minutes after the first pod touched down, the official end came. A soft chime sounded across every channel. The Concorde voice spoke calm and final. The trial of Karos 9 is complete. The representative of Earth has survived. The Shadow Claws Guild has fallen. By the terms agreed, Earth remains sovereign and protected. No Dominion claim stands. The matter is closed. The words echoed through space. On core worlds, crowds in public squares looked up at giant screens and felt something new, respect mixed with unease. On fringe colonies, people who had feared the Dominion smiled small private smiles. In the Dominion flagship, leaders sat in stunned quiet. Their greatest hunters, the pride of centuries, reduced to nothing by one unaugmented human. The guild would not recover. Names would fade. Worlds that once paid tribute would look elsewhere for protection. Mara's pod landed soft behind her. The hatch opened. She stood, slung her rifle, walked up the ramp without looking back. Inside, the same young pilot waited. He said nothing, just gave a quick salute. She nodded once, sat in the simple seat, buckled in. The pod lifted smooth, rose through thinning smoke into clear sky. Below, Karos 9 looked small again, jungle and ash and scattered dead. The cameras followed until the pod broke atmosphere, then turned away. Mara leaned her head back, closed her eyes for the first time in almost a day. She did not sleep yet. She just rested. When the pod docked with the small Earth transport waiting in orbit, she stepped out onto the plane deck. No crowd greeted her. No flags waved. Just quiet halls and soft lights. She walked to a small room with one window, looking at stars. She stood there a long time, watching the galaxy turn slow. A message came through on a private screen. Short words from Earth Command. Well done. Come home when ready. She touched the screen once, then turned it off. Word spread fast after that. Species across known space started to speak of humans in new ways. Not as primitives, not as weak newcomers, as something else. The kind of thing you do not hunt. The kind of thing that hunts you back when you push too far. Stories grew, some true, some bigger than truth. They said Mara Voss never smiled during the hunt. They said she never ran from a fight. They said she left no trophies because she did not need proof. The truth was simpler. She had done what needed doing. Nothing more, nothing less. Years later, on quiet nights in far systems, old hunters would still tell the tale around low fires. They would lower their voices when they spoke her name. They would say the galaxy once thought it knew apex predators. Then Earth sent one woman, and everything changed. The Shadow Claws never reformed. The Dominion grew quieter, more careful. The Concorde added new rules about Earth. Rules no one broke. And somewhere, maybe on a small blue world or walking under strange stars, Mara Voss cleaned her rifle again. She looked up at the sky the same way she always did. Calm, steady, no fear. She smiled then, small and private, the same small, calm smile she had given the claws on the platform long ago. The hunt was over, but the lesson stayed. Earth did not send armies to prove it was dangerous. It sent one person to remind everyone why it never needed to. And the stars listened.